Welcome to Babblecom 5. This is episode 21 of season 2 of Babylon 5, Comes the Inquisitor. G'Kar is warning the citizens of Babylon 5 against Centauri aggression when one of his own asks him to stop, failing to see what he is trying to achieve, and pulls him away for a meeting. Veer watches on from a suspended walkway. In the red sector, Delenn walks to meet with Kosh, but the music is strangely ominous. It seems that he has doubts about Delenn and has summoned an Inquisitor who she must submit to. Delenn asks how she will know who it is, and he responds that she will know if she survives. Delenn speaks with Sheridan in his office with Lennier, requesting that whoever is coming be passed through customs without incident. Sheridan is fine with this, but is trying to understand what Kosh's concerns are given the impending war. Delenn says that he is uncertain about her, whilst Lennier tries to put a more positive spin on it. Lennier says Kosh is looking to confirm the right people are in the right place at the right time. Delenn says she is undertaking this of her own free will and asks Sheridan not to intervene. G'Kar, meanwhile, is looking to purchase relatively light weapons from a Mr. Chase for guerrilla resistance. His price is steep, which G'Kar notes is ironic as most of the weapons he offers came from the Narn originally. He is apologetic, but it's a seller's market. He knocks 10% off if G'Kar signs off on the deal now. He does so, but explains to Mr. Chase that the funds for these weapons come from the Narn who were able to escape the Centauri, and so they are purchased with blood. Should the money go to waste, his body may be found, but it will not be identifiable. He gets the message. In C&C, Corwin reports the jump gate going active, and to his and Ivanova's surprise identifies the ship as a Vorlon transport, only Kosh hasn't left the station. Sheridan greets the arrival, who is preceded by footsteps and the clicking of a cane on the hard floor of the arrivals area. No encounter suit in sight, just a very anachronistic top hat and a cane with a crystal top alongside a pale human face and a black suit. The newcomer's name is Sebastian. He inhabited Earth, London, in 1888 and feels that little has changed. In response to Sheridan's questions, he says yes, he's seen the Vorlons as they are, and Sheridan isn't ready for that. And yes, they've been to Earth. They've been everywhere. The Vorlons are. He was taken, shown many truths, and preserved when not needed. Now he is needed for this interrogation, and Sheridan should either let him proceed or let him leave. Sheridan lets him proceed. He is one scary mofo. Garibaldi collars G'Kar about his arms deals. G'Kar doesn't try to deny the fact, because he knows Garibaldi doesn't start a conversation without knowing where it's going to end up. His warning given, he passes G'Kar a data crystal, on which are details of a little way station in Sector 90 next to a jump gate, run by a friend of his who deals in questionable merchandise. He'll help G'Kar move his weapons free of charge. G'Kar asks why he's helping, and Garibaldi notes that while he does indeed know how conversations are going to go, he always allows for someone disappointing him. G'Kar didn't lie to him, and so didn't disappoint him. Delenn goes to meet Sebastian in Grey 19, because it's out of the way and quiet. She steps through pools of light and is stopped in one by Sebastian's voice, reminiscent of her place as part of the Grey Council. Sebastian throws a pair of bracelets to her, saying that if she takes them off at any point, she will be deemed unworthy. His first question is, "Who are you?" Her answers are logical, truthful, and unacceptable to him, because they are given to her by others. The bracelets are pain givers, and he is not afraid to use them when answers displease him. He believes that she sees herself as special, on a godly mission to fight the good fight, yet how can she fight for others if she does not know herself? Everyone who has come before him has broken. He believes her to be no different. So her pride, her self-belief, will be tested, once and for all. Veer hurries into a lift pursued by a kiss-ass Centauri looking for a favour from Londo, and finds himself alone with G'Kar. After a few moments of silence as G'Kar stares and Veer shuffles into the corner, he gathers enough courage to turn to G'Kar and apologise, saying he tried to speak out but they didn't listen. When the lift door opens, G'Kar draws a blade and cuts his own hand, intoning dead every time a drop of blood falls, to Veer's increasing horror. Finally, he asks Veer if the dead can hear his apology, and as they can't, he says he cannot forgive. And he heads off down the corridor, emotion etched across Veer's face as he retreats back into the lift. Sebastian continues to push Delenn, inflicting pain to see whether the universe will answer her cries. It does not. Again, he is trying to establish whether she believes she has some grand destiny, but is pleased when she acknowledges that she sometimes fears that she could be wrong about her own place in the world. He allows her 10 minutes of rest. G'Kar is facing challenges from the station's Narns, feeling that whilst he has the best of intentions, he lacks the means of following through on them. He is set and accepts a challenge, get a message from Narn back to a challenger to demonstrate that he has the necessary means. If he fails, he stands aside as the leader locally. If not, the others will fall in behind him. Tough ask, as all communications with the Narn homeworld have been shut down. Sebastian believes Delenn is part of a machine that believes itself the whole of the machine. She struggles to her feet, defiant, and goads him with her own analysis of who he is, a giver and receiver of pain, whose own hopes of effecting a change fell to ash. She is punished hard, Sebastian's cane glowing as her shackles feed charges into her. He even seems to be able to control her heart rate. G'Kar goes to Sheridan and Garibaldi for help with his task. Sheridan says they'll try, and when G'Kar's left, he discusses using the Rangers to get the job done. Garibaldi points out it's a war zone they'll be going into, and they may not be ready, but Sheridan decides it's time they were ready, so they'll give it a shot. Delenn is lying on the floor when Lanier runs in to try and help, but she is desperate for him to leave before Sebastian returns. She says she does not understand the rules of whatever game he is playing, so cannot understand how to win, but she implores him that if he cares for her and what she stands for, he must leave, and so he goes. Straight to Sheridan, explaining his fear that the Inquisitor may be killing her. He may not be far off. Delenn is in agony, surrounded by the energy field as Sebastian holds his glowing cane and looks on. She falls to the ground, and as Sebastian crouches and says he sees no hope for her, a hatch opens behind him and a PPG charges up. Sheridan has come to challenge him, but bracelets or no, Sheridan is just as vulnerable as Delenn to the power of Sebastian's cane and is swiftly knocked back and restrained. While Sebastian acknowledges that he isn't there to test Sheridan, he sees them as two parts of a whole and proceeds to start questioning, then hitting him with energy impacts from side to side. Then Delenn intercedes, and Sebastian warns her not to try escaping as Sheridan tells her to, saying his life will be forfeit if she attempts it. She tells him that life is her cause, and if she dies, another will take her place, and another. She will sacrifice herself for one individual or 1,000,000 without any hope of fame or recognition. She is not afraid. And with a wave of his cane, Sebastian is gone, as are their restraints. They help each other towards the opening door, and Sebastian is on the other side before they reach it, telling them they have passed and are free to go. They are the chosen, whom he has been looking for centuries in service to the Vorlons. The people willing to die unremarked for all the wrong reasons. As Lanier suggested earlier, Sebastian now confirms. In the darkness to come as their work begins, they should know that they are the right people, in the right place, at the right time. Sheridan and Delenn embrace. Back in CNC, Sheridan is puzzling over something and asks Ivanova to run a search against the name Sebastian in London at the address the Inquisitor mentioned when they first met, circa 1888. G'Kar has his message. The Narn's family are alive and safe and vow to remain so. The Narn affirms his allegiance to G'Kar as their leader, as they agreed. The group is united. Sheridan catches Sebastian as he's about to leave, but notes that his digging showed he vanished from London on 11th of November 1888, the morning after the last of a string of murders in the East End. Sebastian notes that he believed he was right and the world was wrong, and in trying to send that message to the world he did terrible things. The Vorlon came to him and showed him that he was not a divine messenger, not chosen, misguided by his own presumption. He has done 400 years of penance. Now he hopes the Vorlons will let him die. Sheridan thinks that might be for the best. He wishes Sheridan good luck and hopes he makes better decisions than him, for his resulted in him not being regarded as a messenger or a prophet, but just as plain, simple Jack. Jack the Ripper. Some people would have known from the beginning, I'm sure, but I'm not sure I did, so at the end I was very much to say, what now? Brilliantly out of left field. Wayne Alexander gives an incredible performance here, and it's very much that. It's almost Shakespearean how he holds forth as Jack. And this is a hell of a guy to leave alone in a room with a woman, because he is somewhat reformed. That being said, his cane is one hell of a boomstick when it wants to be. Clearly Vorlon tech involved there, because force projection isn't really anything the younger races are capable of, certainly not at that small scale. And he's clearly not afraid to use it when it serves its purpose. Before I discuss his backstory further, I just want to note that Veer and G'Kar lift scene. I'd forgotten that was this episode, but as soon as I saw it, I recalled what was coming, and it is just such a powerful couple of minutes with so little said, yet so much conveyed. Veer is of course very atypical in not being at all happy about what's been going on and the end result for Narn as a Centauri, so I don't think anyone watching the scene can be in any doubt that his apology is heartfelt, and that he's just a cog in the wheel. Yet G'Kar spares him no empathy. He intentionally shocks him, and intentionally defies his attempt at an acknowledgement of guilt and wrongdoing, because for G'Kar, it's done. All that's left is blood and bodies. And I suppose we're invited to ask the question, could Veer have done more? Should he share in the guilt by omission? We know he's tried to rein Londo in, but it's hard not to be on G'Kar's side here at this point, I guess. So the Rangers play an important, if unseen, part in this episode, as a way for Sheridan to influence events outside the station and keep G'Kar, a known entity, in his place. I suppose here and now, we don't really know how they operate, but Sheridan's clearly of the view that this is the point at which they need to start stepping up, and they do. So G'Kar owes Sheridan and Garibaldi off the back of this episode, and can now at least act from a position of some local strength. So let's go back to Jack and Delenn, who is put through the ringer in this episode. Quite painful to watch at times, and hard for her to process as well, because Jack is operating with a very human mindset. Although ironically, if you think back to Sinclair's experience during the Battle of the Line, the Minbari do their own share of pressuring prisoners to get the answers they want. Here the shoe's on the other foot, as Jack applies physical pressure to try and break through her Minbari cultural programming to get at her core being. Who is Ambassador Delenn of the Minbari when everything is stripped away from her? Had she understood what he was actually asking earlier, we could probably have pointed to what she did for the Markab, where she threw herself into a dangerous position to aid others. I think what Jack is doing is trying to find the proverbial Good Samaritan, someone who acts out of good intentions purely for the sake of it, without any personal agenda or glory seeking. That, of course, was what he had hoped for, that he would be recognised for changing the world, until the Vorlon showed him that it was he who was wrong, not the world, and proceeded to place him in purgatory. An interesting aspect of this is that the Vorlons don't seem able to make their own call about Delenn. The fact that they must place great faith in Jack to make the right assessment suggests that they recognise that they lack the toolkit, despite their seemingly telepathic nature, to ask the right questions in the right way to establish what they're looking for. Also interesting that they have been prepared to kill people as part of the process, or allow them to kill themselves, as Jack phrases it. Clearly Jack still has immense self-belief in his ability to do what he perceives as being right, even if it means inflicting pain on others. So he is a very good tool for this task, although you have to wonder what would have happened if Lanier hadn't gone to Sheridan, with the result that his head got put on the block too. Would Delenn have made it by herself? Harder to say perhaps, but Sheridan being involved was really what unlocked it and allowed her to show Jack what he was searching for. From the point of view of Delenn's character, this is another hard test for her, because already this season we've seen her own people doubting her, and now she has the Vorlons expressing doubt in her as well, with potentially dire consequences. It's just another reminder of the price she's had to pay for her change, and how strong a character she's had to be throughout to get through it all. Obviously, this is a Babylon 5 episode, but it feels like it could be a terrific science fiction short story in its own right, and it's a fascinating curveball to have thrown in for the penultimate episode of the season. It makes perfect sense that the Vorlons would need to do this now, but for JMS to throw Jack the Ripper into the mix and have such a great piece of acting to do it with is just incredible. The really intriguing element of this too is that the Vorlons, and not the Greys, have been messing with humanity and apparently others for centuries. We've seen Kosh looking at historical Earth records when Sinclair went to his quarters in Season 1. Maybe he was seeing if he got in anyone's selfies? It also, of course, pegs the question of how many other individuals the Vorlons are preserving until they need them. So, notwithstanding the torture, Delenn and Sheridan have been given a clean bill of health to lead the Army of Light in the coming conflict, and G'Kar's trying to piece a resistance together from the ashes of the Narn homeworld, thanks to an assist from the Rangers. And next time, the final episode of Season 2 awaits. Hang on to your top hats.